to show you how to make one of the panels out of the 10 Commandments Liturgical Bellpull and Runner set from Kreative Kiwi. For this I'm going to be using a 5x7 hoop, a layer of cutaway stabiliser, a selection of threads, some pins with heads on them, masking tape, squizzers, and my fabric and batting cut to size. You'll find a link to this design in the video description below. There are options for this design. If you're going to join in the hoop, you will stitch every single colour in each of the files. If you prefer to stitch them and join them on your sewing machine, you will not stitch the last 2 colours out on every file. We're going to start off by hooping and pinning our layer of cutaway stabiliser. So place your stabiliser over the hoop, insert the frame, and then we're going to pin around the top edge of the hoop to stop the stabiliser being pulled down between the hoop. Now this is very important with this design because there's a lot of fill and that's going to pull on your fabric, so we want to stop that from happening as much as possible. So take your pins and rest it on the inside hoop, push it through, bring the pin round and back through the stabiliser again, and you're going to do that on all 4 sides. And I'm going to put some extra pins in to what I normally do on this on a 5x7 frame, just to make sure that everything lines up nicely. If you find that your stitches are not lining up as they should, then it's because there's movement in the hoop. If you're doing a larger size than the 5x7, it's even more important, and you'll put a lot more pins in. So now that our hoop is ready, load a darker coloured thread into your machine, and this is just for the first round, and that's so that when you come to join your panels up later on, you can clearly see the stitch lines. It just makes life a little bit easier rather than using white on white. So load your panel into your machine, and then we're going to stitch round number 1, and that's going to give us our placement outline for our batting. And I'm using a dark brown thread for this so that it shows up nice and clearly. Place your batting over the outline and tape it in place. Load your thread colour for the quilting of the panel into your machine, and then you're going to stitch round number 2, and that's going to secure your batting. Trim away the excess batting from around the edge of the stitch line, taking care not to cut your stitches. Place your fabric for the panel over the top of the batting, and I'm going to try and get mine central. That gives me maximum seam allowance when I come to binding my runner later on. And then you're going to tape it in place, making sure that you've got your thread colour for the quilting loaded into your machine. You are now going to stitch round number 3, and that's going to secure your fabric and then quilt it. Load your thread colour for the open pages into your machine, and then stitch round number 4, and I'm going with white. Load your thread colour for the side and bottom of the pages of the book into your machine, and then stitch round number 5, and I'm going with gold. Load your thread colour for the suggestive chapters into your machine, and then stitch round number 6, and I'm going with dark brown. Load your thread colour for the outline of the book into your machine, and then stitch round number 7, and I'm staying with dark brown. Load your thread colour for the silhouette of the praying hands into your machine, and then stitch round number 8, and I'm going with mid brown. So we now come to the joining. If you're going to be joining in the hoop, you're going to take your previous panel, which I've already stitched out, and you're going to place it face down on top of your current panel. And then with some pins, we're going to align both panels together. And I'm going to put a pin right in the very corner stitch of the panel A. And I'm going to push that pin through the very corner stitch of panel B. I'm going to do the same for the middle, where the centre quilting line is, and then through this one, and the same on the very end here. You want to push them right the way down and turn this hoop over, and then I'm just going to put a pin to hold that flat for the second. It's only temporary, just while we align it all. And the same here. And we're going to be removing these pins before we stitch. So that should be our panel all nicely lined up. You can see just by flipping it back that it is. And then we're going to put some pins along here. Whenever you work with pins on your hoop, always make sure that they're right out of the way of the stitch line. I'm going to put some hard up against the hoop there as well. Now I can remove the pins on the back of my hoop and my markers. You're now going to pop your hoop into your machine and stitch round number 9, and that's going to stitch along here and join the two panels together. And this is why it's important to use a darker colour just at the very beginning on your first round of stitching, so that you can see where everything is. And before we stitch, you want to make sure that you've got your neutral thread colour loaded into your machine. We're now going to stitch round number 9, and that's going to baste our two panels together. And before we do the next round of stitching, which will secure these together permanently, just open your panels out and check that you're happy with the alignments before you go any further. If you're not happy with it, unpick that row of stitching, reposition your panel, secure it in the hoop, and then stitch round number 9 again. I'm quite happy with this one, so I'm just going to pop a pin in here just to hold that down. And we're now going to stitch round number 10. Now that this is finished stitching, we can free this from the hoop and we can trim away the excess stabiliser, because that's not really needed. If you prefer to leave it, you can, but to remove any bulk, I'm just going to remove it. So that's our panel stitched and our first two joined. You'll carry on in exactly the same way with all the other panels. The only one that might vary slightly is panel F if you're doing the Bellpull version rather than the table runner, because it's got a buttonhole in it. And what you would do there is, once you have created the panel, you will trim out any fabric and batting to reveal the buttonhole in it. And I would advise you to put a layer of wash away stabilizer underneath so that you can trim out the cutaway as well as the fabric and batting. That way you've got a really nice sturdy buttonhole that's going to last forever. For finishing your runner, I have got another video showing everything step by step. It's from a very similar design called the Lord's Prayer, and in that video I show you how to add your backing fabric and also how to bind your project as well. So I'm going to leave a link for that in the video description below, and you can go there now and watch it. I hope you enjoyed this stitch along. If you did, please give me a thumbs up. Don't forget to subscribe to be notified of new videos as soon as they're published. Do pop along to Kreative Kiwi's Facebook group. There's always lots of ideas, help and inspiration there for everybody. And thank you very much for joining me. You'll find a link to this design in the video description below, along with lots of other information such as where I get my supplies and some discount codes for you as well. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.